Yo guys, just a quick little update before we start. I'd just like to let you guys know, I'd just like to say thank you for my client list is completely full. However, this does mean that I now have a waiting list. So if you click the link in the podcast, it should say coaching or coaching list. If you click there and you submit an application, when I do have spots available, I can look into coaching you if you'd be interested. What I mean by this is it's just online coaching for physique goals. And I'd be very excited to work with you guys. That is all from me. I hope you guys enjoy this episode of the Hypertrophy Hustle Show. This week I'm speaking to Bryce Lewis. We touched on a range of things as normal, goes anywhere and everywhere. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to the Hypertrophy Hustle Show. This week I'm back with Bryce Lewis. So this is a conversation that I've been quite intrigued to have because the first time I had Bryce on, I didn't know sort of the depth that we could go into in all range of topics, which is commonly the case when you get sort of an intelligent person from the lifting community on. It's quite intriguing. Pretty much any intelligent lifter that you know can have intelligent conversations around literally everything else, and that's the thing that blows my mind. But today I've got Bryce Lewis on. We're going to talk around a variety of topics. We'll see where we go. Can go anywhere. But so if you're not aware of Bryce is the co-founder and coach of the Strength Athlete, which is a very good coaching company online. He is also the 105 kg IPF world champion, which is just fucking insane. Like, he is ridiculously strong. Like, he could probably, he's just crazy strong. Like, go look at his Instagram. It's just ridiculous. So Bryce, one thing that I've been really, really loving about your content recently is you've been making these vlogs and they've been really beautifully shot, nice and edited, and you've been talking about sort of intelligent conversations in these. When making these, what was sort of the thought process? Because it sort of is like a training vlog and you're sort of keeping up your training, but it's also, you'll put some sort of thoughts around cognitive bias or sort of thinking traps and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's really cool how you'll make something that looks really nice and is appealing to the eye, but also has that sort of intelligent, critical thinking sort of stamp in it.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. So maybe 7-8 weeks ago or something like that, I felt stuck in this place of kind of putting out content and just feeling like my Instagram had bled both into being a personal and a professional account. Right. And I didn't really have a place to be myself, and I wasn't marketing our business effectively, and just kind of, there was just spillover into everything, and there were kind of blurred lines, and as a result, I kind of felt trapped. Like, I didn't have a space to be myself and didn't have a business identity, and just kind of was just in this weird kind of limbo. And I made a plan, and that plan kind of included just structuring all of this content. You know, what should I put where and when and how often? So one thing in there was just regular YouTube videos, kind of just like a vlog. And that's kind of like athlete me. You know, that's just talking about my training, sharing performance, just getting to be a little bit creative, doing some videography and some color grading and editing and stuff. And just want to keep it fun and also, share some tips on things I've been thinking about lately.
And I think it's really cool, the fact that, like, you will tie in those intelligent topics. Like, for instance, one you talked about that I found really cool was sort of how, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was I think it was in the latest one. It was, you were talking about how your prior training programs, you will look at those in sort of a certain view, and it's like you will have bias towards what you're doing now compared to that, and you don't sort of take what you did in the past that worked, and you kind of forget about it and don't take it on board as much as, or don't give it as much sort of effort. I mean, as much weight.
I think as strength coaches and as athletes, it's very, very hard to have a 30,000 foot view of the programs that you're looking at. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you get bought in the hype of what you or your coach is doing or what has worked for your athlete specifically. And as a result, you just might dismiss the stuff that's working for other people. Yeah, it's working, but this is what the science says, or yeah, it's working, but my method is superior. Whatever the case is, like, it's just easy to discount that kind of stuff. Or even just take one athlete and let's change the perspective to, instead of comparing two different people, two different coaches or athletes, let's just look at one athlete over time.
Yeah.
Like the way that I was training, 10 years ago or something like that is different in some pretty important ways to what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And I used to think my training was the shit. And today I think my training is the shit, but they're totally different. So, we just kind of have to account, just, take a little bit of perspective. And I think that just makes us a little more humble about the fact that people get strong lots of different ways.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting thing, right? It's like we get someone and we put them in a study, and we have 40 people put them in a study, and then we measure it all. But it's like there's so much variance. And that's the thing that I'm still trying to figure out is like, because I've just started coaching myself like literally last week. And so I've
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And it blew my mind how well it went. I thought no one would sign up. People actually signed up, which is great.
Yeah.
Which is always the imposter syndrome thing. But it's like, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, this is what the like quote unquote rules are. But I have some very interesting clients where it's like they'll have like two of them have scoliosis. So it's like I have to program very specifically for them. And basically that is why everything I'm programming is because of that effectively. Like it all has to come from that, because the limiting factor in progression is pain for them. So it's like they haven't been able to progress in the past because of pain. And is it kind of similar where you basically need to figure out what is unique about this athlete, what's worked for them. Does that end up being because like I don't have as much experience, or nearly as much experience with sort of athletes and sort of seeing what makes it work for them. Is it commonly like different rep ranges that work for people, or is it like different amounts of volume, or different progression scheme, or periodization models?
Yes to all four of those. So there's nothing wrong with having like a coaching style of, like you've got this, you have individual training responses and, athletes at one extreme and someone at the other end of the extreme. And it's okay to have a coaching style that kind of is where you start, like your bell curve of where you might begin, and then take things in different response. Like the modern paradigm for coaches is to follow athlete training response, because we recognize that there's so much individual variability between athletes and how they respond and what represents roughly optimal for an individual athlete. At the same time, okay, so let's pretend that you're coaching in style A, and this is kind of where you start. But the athlete that you're working with actually needs style B. What you need is some kind of metric or kind of thing in your training style that allows you to bridge from style A to style B. Right. Getting a little bit more specific, maybe someone just needs exposure to heavy lifts only every 3 weeks or something like that.
Right.
Like there has to be a method for you to get that information out of your training approach. And that means testing sometimes, testing things that like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work, but maybe it will, and let's give this a shot. Or I've got a hunch this might be the way to go, so let's go there and see how that goes. And it means, as a coach, being flexible and non-dogmatic and kind of open to different strategies. But so it's not just enough to follow a training response. Sometimes there's just no path from what training looks like today to what might be effective for this athlete. So in addition to following training response, we also have to have some vehicle of testing things out.
Right. And then because otherwise it's kind of like we have no metric to kind of tell us this is working, this is not. And it's, I don't know, these topics are so complex, and it's like when you talk about them in the vlog, do you feel as though you kind of have to, I don't know, I guess you can guess to a relative point that your audience is pretty intelligent. But do you feel like you kind of have to make sure you keep yourself on track? Because I think you do a good job of explaining these things coherently without just going off on a massive tangent. And it's like, that's always we always want to give the oral thesis,
Yeah. I don't think that I do a good enough job about that. I should probably just film a vlog where I'm talking to a camera specifically about this topic specifically. But yeah, I enjoy that kind of stuff, but I really would rather kind of condense it and be a little bit more uniform. Like even just now when we were talking, it'd be better to also bring up some concrete examples of maybe situations that have happened in the past. And maybe I should before we move on. Let's So I've had an athlete where I started kind of with a typical range of moderate intensity, moderate frequency, roughly high specificity for powerlifting, doing comp lifts most of the time and maybe some extra pause work or some close grip work or something like that. We kind of realized over time, like, this is just too much work. The athlete is constantly sore, not making much progress, and you can get away with a lot less training volume sometimes and actually see a better training response. And that's a little counterintuitive for some people, with the paradigm of more work equals more results. But sometimes less work equals more results. And we tested that, and lo and behold, like, we found the athlete's sweet spot.
Right. And then I guess that's the interesting thing, because yeah, it's so difficult to portray these kind of nuances, and it's like, especially like when I talk to someone like yourself or like Helms, it's like a lot of the time I'm like, like, these are intelligent people, and it's like they're talking about difficult topics that are intelligent as fuck to, like, that's a weird way to portray it. It's like these are complex topics, and I think to communicate them well is extremely difficult. And sort of, man, it's like, I think so many of the people at like the top of science communication in the evidence-based fitness industry, it's like, do so well at communicating these things. I would say yourself included. It's like just being able to sort of slow it down, like, give the whole context, but not like dumb it down to the point where it's like people. I disagree with the service where you buy a book and then people give them the summary of the book, but I feel like that kind of misses the point. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot of you guys tend to be able to actually give the whole book just in a shortened version, but not kill all the nuance. Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah, I think the sweet spot is make someone curious enough that they want to go look at this on their own, and give them enough takeaway that they feel they have something actionable that they can kind of absorb and process.
Yeah, completely agree.
That's never a defined place, but certainly a goal for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's an impossible place to think, oh yeah, we've reached it, Like, it's way too subjective for that. But one thing that I thought was quite interesting that you said a while back was sort of how social media has kind of, in a way, blurred the lines between personal and business and all that. Would you be able to sort of elaborate on that? Because even, like, I'm tiny on Instagram, comparatively, and it's like, I feel the lines blurred, because it's like, for me, it's like, okay, I'm trying to grow my following. I want this to be a business, but then a lot, like, I would say half my friends I know from Instagram. Like, they're just people that I talk to every day through Instagram. But it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. It definitely blurs the lines and makes it incredibly difficult to sort of have, okay, now I'm working, now I'm not. And this is where I socialize, this is where I don't socialize, this is where I put personal updates about my life or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult thing. How have you sort of, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I will say that people have solved this problem different ways. So some people just put it all together and say, this is me. You're getting me, whether you're talking business me or you're talking personal me.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people like Meg Gallagher, Meg Squats on Instagram. Fantastic person. She just kind of has basically one account that is kind of a combined, this is my personal life, this is also my business life, and I talk about both. And if you want to see me at all, you get to see both of me. I think she has a private account too, but it has a dozen people or something like that. The other way of solving things is to compartmentalize, so that you have business version of you and you have personal version of you. And I personally like that strategy a little bit better, just because people go to a specific page looking for a specific type of content. And you're just giving people what they're expecting, so that they're not getting personal stuff when they're expecting business stuff. So that was kind of a recent switch to make sure that I'm kind of keeping lines clear and putting stuff in the right basket. Basically, this is the TSA basket, this is the Bryce athlete basket, and this is the Bryce personal basket. And it kind of helps me to feel just a little bit more free to post stuff when I don't have to censor myself on a channel, because this is just meant for my friends.
Right.
Not that I'm posting like obscene content or anything like that. Just, stupid opinions about video games or, a book I've read or something.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing, like, because you've got quite a lot of followers now, and it's kind of the thing where does it kind of stress you out, the fact that people will, like, do you find people talk to you differently than they did when you didn't have followers?
Yes. Yeah, there's a real halo effect. And it's dumb that it exists, but it does. I try to tell people, especially when they meet me in person, like, I'm just an athlete. The numbers are just numbers, and I'm just talking to you here. Like, we're just two people talking to each other. But I have seen that effect take hold on people, and I just kind of try to normalize it, not feed it. It makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's hard. It's especially interesting, I find, in our sort of niche, in a way, in fitness. It's like you have the really big people in fitness who want to be idolized, right? They want to put themselves on a platform because that generates views. But it's like, then you get like intelligent, thoughtful, critical thinkers, and it's like, man, they don't usually want that. They want the truth. Like, this whole thing is kind of the pursuit of truth. And it's like the moment we have that, I don't know, everything kind of breaks down. Because it's like when someone talks to you like that, you can't have a thoughtful conversation with them a minute later. Like, it's pretty difficult, because then you're worried about how they're trying to influence you, I guess.
Absolutely. So it's about motives and I guess even trust to some extent too. But also just, for me, it's putting you on the same level as who you're talking to.
Yeah.
So if someone is just enamored by the fact that you have 300,000 followers or something like that, that's not me, by the way. Then they're going to treat you differently than if you were, like, if you just met in a coffee shop, and they had no idea about anything in regards to a digital presence.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's really complicated. And it's like, I wish we could, I don't know, like, navigate this a little bit. It's like when I talk to Helms, right? Like, obviously, like, we're quite close, and I think it's sort of like a mentor relationship. Obviously, he's a shitload more successful than me, and that is obvious. That is not like this is a thing in the conversation we acknowledge. But I don't look at him and think, holy shit, it's Eric Helms. I'm going to treat him like a god. It's like, because what the fuck does that do to the conversation? It just ruins it. It's like, I don't know, man. It's really difficult, because, like, there's this guy I had on the podcast, and I follow him. He's just a great guy. Like, he's just the most down-to-earth guy. He's like one of the influencers, right? But he's basically, like, he's a teenager like my age. He's like, what, a year older than me? But it's like he mentioned the other day that he feels like now he has very little friends because he can't really trust people as much. It's like you can't really go and just be friends with anyone, especially if they've known you for the followers or through the followers.
That's what all the rap songs talk about, man.
And do you feel that effect?
No, probably not to the same degree, but I know people who do. So I think the thing that happens is if you get to a certain level of notoriety, and this happened, before the digital age, but basically if you get to a certain level of being known, you just can't trust people's motives. You can't trust that they are interacting with you for you. Right. Instead of interacting with you because they want something, or they want to be seen with you, or they want to, kind of use you as a means to some other end, rather than just interacting with you. And that can tend to close your friend circle down quite a bit because of a lack of trust.
Yeah.
That's where the rap songs come from. Like my friends from my day one friends or something like that.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I've even, like I'm by no means like Instagram famous. Like I've barely got followers, and it's like I'm even making an effort now, because seeing what I've seen through people in the podcast, it's like I'm trying to make an effort now to make sure I keep the people who I know I can trust, like keep them close, make sure they're my friends, like make sure I treat them well, make sure I realize how important they are for the future.
Yeah,
because it's like if I just said fuck it, if I got famous and I said fuck it, nah, I'm gonna be famous with the famous people now. Yeah, and it's like if that didn't end up happening, it's like okay, now you're kind of left with no one that you can trust. And I don't know, it creates a fucked up dynamic. Like, another thing that I think is really fucked up is, like, a lot of people my age have the personal Instagram, right? And then most of them won't have a business one, but they'll treat the personal like a business one. And it's like they'll try to become an influencer, or they're trying to market their lives, even if their end goal is not money. And it perplexes me. It's like, it's not like you're giving people updates of your life, but it's like you're putting your life out there in a way that's kind of trying to make it seem more than, and it's like it's active and obvious.
Yeah. There's probably quite a few things that feed into that. I've noticed that too, but probably for quite a few reasons why that might be the case. Maybe their idols do it. So the people they see who they feel like they want to be like are doing the same thing, so they might want to do that too. There's kind of a social pressure to put out like the good stuff only. Yeah. No one really wants to read or see like the bad stuff, unless it's phrased in some good light, like, look at this challenge that I overcome. No one's like staying up late doing 8 hours of homework. It's not going to get many likes. So,
or even like, hey, I feel shit tonight. I feel depressed and lonely. Like, people aren't putting that out. Right.
And with the fact that more people are communicating almost exclusively online or meeting their friends online, there's a decreasing space for that authentic communication.
Do you feel like, have you had to sort of, like, do you place rigid boundaries in terms of things like phone usage in your life? Do you find, is there quite a useful place for that?
I have tried different things, and I haven't really found something that feels like it works really well. Partly, a lot of my business revolves around an online presence and being online, posting regular content, and being able to respond to messages on a pretty regular basis. But if I wasn't doing that, then I probably would put some stricter rules in place. There's a great book by Cal Newport called Digital Minimalism that I enjoy a lot.
Just read it. Fantastic.
Yeah. He's definitely looking at more of an extreme route. Like his starting point is you need a month off, a month away from your phone completely to just kind of normalize. And I think that already is a deal breaker for a lot of people, or they feel like it's a deal breaker. At least it was for me. There's some other rules about how often.
It's just like that would. I don't know. We're in such a fast moving space. It's like if you just don't post for a whole month, people will literally forget who you are. Well, not really, but it's like it'll have such a massive impact. And like that's just, there's no incentive to do that.
Right. So there's obviously a frequency that's too often. And then there's a frequency at which, people really won't notice. Like if you don't post for 5-6 days or something like that, big deal. But if people are expecting content and, that's not coming, people will have in front of them a stream of content all the time. And they're not too particular about, is it coming from Bryce Lewis or is it coming from someone else? And at least I think it's that way.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree. Like there will be certain people you'll follow where you'll want to consume all their content, and like that will occur. But it's like if you just drop off like if I just stopped posting podcasts, I reckon like a few people would notice. But it's like, no, I reckon it'll be different with the podcast. But if I stop posting Instagram content, I don't think that many people would be like, hey, where'd you go? What the fuck? Like, if I said I'm leaving, people might say something. But it's like, if I just stopped, I don't think, except those I've sort of had a personal relationship with, would notice, because it's just a fucking massive stream of content. Like, people follow like 1,000 people on Instagram. It's like, you're not going to, there's no way you can sort of follow that.
At the same time, so that kind of message just clarifies the fact that you have to do this for yourself, because you have a message you believe in, or because you feel like you have something people need to hear, or just because it's straight up enjoyable to you. And that kind of frees you from the pressure of doing this for other people. You're doing this for yourself.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know, it's the strange thing, like, it's very hard to get to that point. Like, I remember I did like 500 posts, and they were all pretty terrible. My first like 500 posts, and like, you make shit work before you make anything decent, which is how it is. And I found I was definitely making them not for myself. I just wanted followers. Like, I was trying anything and everything to get some followers. And then I just sort of said, you know what? Who cares? Like, I'm here to make the podcast. This is just this is just a tool to market the podcast effectively. And it's like, it doesn't really, like, I found Instagram does not really draw people to a podcast that much. But I find what I've found really enjoyable is just talking on Instagram. Like, if I have a thought and I think it's interesting, I will say it out loud, and then I find some people will respond and they'll say some more nuanced thoughts, and that will really drive my thought process. Just like, it's just a platform to get your thoughts out. Like,
yeah,
I literally put something out on my close friends the other day that was like about sort of my relationships with women at this point in my life, and it was like I got some really nice nuanced thoughts back. And it was really interesting. Like, I wouldn't put it on, my public or like my full story, but it was like being able to just put that out there, see what people say.
Yeah. I think so those kind of thoughts, like, oftentimes used to have in just conversations between two friends, something like that, and you'd be able to get into some pretty deep topics, and now, at least in my experience, those kind of things are less encouraged. And so the space for that is online and less personal, because you get maybe a few responses back, but things don't really feel like they go too deep. Like, maybe it's just a few comments back and forth. I still long for kind of like opening up. Like, I think what makes someone a friend is, number one, kind of the depth that you go to on topics, and also the fact that you can talk about uncomfortable things too.
Yeah. That's my two best friends. Like, that is why we're best friends, because it's like we can do that any day of the week. And it's just like, fuck, if they like just died in a car crash, I do not know what I'd do, because it's like it's so hard to find people that you can just like seriously get deep on. Like, my friend messaged me a while ago and she was just like, hey, like, I'm finding most conversations, and this, because she messaged me because I've had problems with this as well before. It's like, because of the podcast, like, you get these intense conversations. It's like, I'll be having conversations in normal life and I'm just finding them utterly boring. And it's like, I think it's a reasonably bad way to look at it, because every conversation has potential. But
yeah,
it's so hard to get into that conversation. Like, say if you're at university going to a party and you talk to 20 people, they can all be a fucking boring conversation with no nuance, no nothing, and it's just like nothing that lights you on fire. And then you have one conversation with someone anywhere, and it just blows your mind. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like people aren't prepared for those. I feel like people want them, right? But they're not prepared for them, I would say.
Yeah. I think everyone has that issue that makes them really passionate about. You just kind of have to find it. And actually, a really popular gift and kind of growing trend I've been seeing is these packs of cards that are all conversation starters. Have you seen those?
Yeah. I saw one the other day,
Yeah. School of Life company that sells one, and it's basically just kind of like, let's cut the bullshit, let's get to the core and talk about something interesting.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's a question like, you describe a time where you almost died or something like that, and or like, when did you feel the most fearful for your life, or whatever it is. They're questions that just cut to something important, and I feel like that's a good place that really just gets you to connect.
And I feel like so a place that I guaranteed pretty much always get this is, I work at a shoe store. Like, we sell running shoes, right? And we're there all day, every day. Not every day. I'm there twice a week. And I find that is where deep conversations happen, because we are bored as fuck. And we are just standing there. We just stand there at the front. We have to be on the shop floor. So we have to stand in close proximity to each other with nothing. We can't like go on the computer and fuck around. Like, we're actually there to work. So we have to make the shop look busy, right? Yeah. And we will just get into the most intense conversations, no matter who I'm working with either. Like, it doesn't matter who I'm working with. It just, I don't know, it's just that environment. We're not sitting there scrolling Instagram on our phones.
That's the big thing, is I think the distraction's removed.
Yeah, exactly. It's so pure. Like, when I walk with my friend, Like she's my best friend in the world. We'll go like walk a dog, and like that is the most joyful, like I don't know, amazing time. Just because we don't go on our phones, we sort of make that a habit. If one of us is on our phones, we're like, okay, yeah, for like 15 seconds it's cool, but if you're on it for like 5 minutes, something's an issue. Like that's an issue,
right?
Especially
right.
If you're hanging out with someone, it's just like, mate, like no. I don't know. It's just so commonly the fact you'll see people at the dinner table, and they've got Instagram out. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? It's like, God,
right.
It's like you can never have this dinner again. Like, you could have another one, but this exact one, like, I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with you.
It kind of just like, I don't know. In a way, it kind of like breaks my heart. It's like, fuck, like. People want these, like, especially people my age, right? They are so commonly lonely and depressed, and they aren't happy with who their friends are and what they're doing, and then they hang out with their friends and they don't put in full effort. And then the problem is when you do put in full effort, the people around you don't either. So it's like,
right.
How are you going to get those meaningful, deep relationships that make life worth living?
Yeah, it kind of has to be a team effort, an expectation. Like, this is the goal that we're trying to get. I listened to kind of a little bit of a Hidden Brain podcast recently, and they had on someone from a TED Talk basically just saying, like, when you meet up with family or friends or something like that, if you're looking for this kind of stuff, at the outset, just say, this is my goal out of this meeting, this conversation, this, event or whatever. This is what I'm trying to get out of it. And that way there's a far greater likelihood that everyone's going to be on the same page or pushing toward the same outcome.
That's really interesting. I've never thought of it that way, because it's like, I think it was like the conversation starters, right? It kind of feels, I don't know, people always romanticize back in the day, and I think you touched on this last time we spoke. It was like they romanticize back in the day and say, blah, blah, they talked on a bus, and everyone would just chat along on a bus. And I think you said no one really went back in the day, was talking on buses. They would just read the newspaper or something. But it's like, I think, like, my jerk reaction and, like, my initial, like, is like, oh, that makes it artificial. But it's like, I don't know, if you get to the same result, what's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like, I don't know, it makes it like, I don't actually think it does make it like this, but it makes me think like this. Like, my initial jerk reaction is, wow, that it kind of makes the magic of the conversation lost, I guess. But then it's like, podcasts are not.
I can see what you're saying. Yep.
I guess podcasts are the exact same thing. Like, we get to these beautiful, deep conversations, but they come through the artificial like construction of questions and such.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just a starting point, and then at some point you kind of abandon that, but you just have a framework to begin with.
Yeah, 100%. It's, I don't know. I find this stuff endlessly, like, painful and fascinating, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Everyone is looking for connection. I think at least that's a basic human need. But I think we sabotage ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. Is because I was watching one of your older vlogs where you were talking about your home gym and sort of the pros and cons. Is that one of the reasons you sort of switched to, like, a more community gym, where it's like you have more interaction, but then I guess there's still the rule of, like, there's still that balance between you're about to do a heavy set of, what was it, 860 on block pulls or something?
Oh, yeah.
Like something ridiculous like that. And then someone comes up and chats to you about their coffee or whatever. I guess there's that balance.
Yeah, it's true. You certainly give up some control when you stop training alone. And it's really balanced. When you're at a home gym, just kind of being more explicit about it, you get to control every factor of your environment. What's the music? How loud is the music? When does the music start or stop? This is actually an interesting thing. Like, if you just want silence, you just don't get that option if you're training at a commercial gym or something like that, unless you throw your headphones on or something like that. But
like, tape them to your head.
Right? Yeah. Obviously, equipment, temperature, everything like that. Like, you just have control. when you train alone. But you certainly miss out on a level of support and kind of camaraderie, team environment, which can really lift you up out of some difficult training sessions, or help you get through some very challenging reps. Not to mention like the actual logistical side of spotting, wrapping your knees, or just helping you get through like the actual training itself.
Yeah. And I think it's quite interesting. Like, for instance, I go to a gym where we're reasonably social, and I find the social aspect of it's quite refreshing. Like, I'm a pretty antisocial guy, especially right now. Like, I try not to count podcasts as social interaction, or else I will like just do podcasts and not go outside, which I think is dangerous.
Just have a podcast with all your friends.
Yeah, that's what I was listening to my podcast with Mike yesterday, because I'm having him on tomorrow. Mike Israel, and he actually does that. Like, he's got a podcast where it's just him and his mates, and they just chat shit. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't advertise it or anything. It's
That's
just
great.
like, it's really, yeah. But I mean, it's like the podcasts occur. Like, when me and my friends sit down, there's this Chinese place we go to, and it's open till 2 a.m. It's a weird place. Like, it's just set up. Everything's weird. They've got like board games, and it's just strange. And we'll just sit there and have the best conversations of our lives, just in this little booth. And it's just, I don't know. Like, that's the shit that I'm going to remember when I'm 90.
I was just about to say, when you look back over the past 5 years, those are the kind of things that really stick out.
It's, I don't know, constantly mind-blowing. Like, just the conversations, man. Do you feel like the community gym environment kind of... Because in the gym environment, right, that I'm at, right, like, people will come up and talk to me. We'll have conversations. One of my like best friends is the manager, and it's like we'll just chat all the time, and we'll chat for like 3 hours straight, and it'll elongate my training session by like probably an hour, which is interesting. But
some kind of time travel going on in that equation there. But I do know what you mean. I try for the training sessions to be very performance oriented. We're here to do a task. Training comes first, and then conversations come second, and everyone kind of understands that. And that way we get the best out of ourselves. Like, we have, thankfully, a lot of really strong athletes at my gym, at Elevate Barbell in Fort Collins, and everyone is there to do their work first and foremost, and then just kind of squeeze the conversations in the gaps between that kind of stuff. But if you just are in the middle of a conversation, you turn around and just walk the other way, it's understood like that wasn't because I'm bored. That's because I'm about to go do a set.
Yeah, no, that's cool, because I think that's the difficult thing to navigate in kind of like the gym conversation environment. It's like, I don't know, like rest times are a thing, right? And it's like people want to stick them generally around sort of the same sort of feeling or the same sort of like time, and yeah, that can be the difficult thing to manage that, I guess. And do you feel like it's the gym environment you've sort of facilitated?
Some people understand more than others. If we have some people who are just visiting the gym or something,
right?
It's very hard to interrupt someone and be like, "Hey, I'll be right back. Just have to go take a set real quick." That kind of feels like a social faux pas to some people, but very important to do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting. Do you find people will like, especially going back to sort of what we talked about earlier, it's like people will sort of look at you as sort of the halo effect and then want to always talk to you while you're in the gym, which I can assume would get frustrating.
No, not really. Everyone is really good. We're all just there to work and stuff like that.
Do you feel like sort of respect what you're trying to do?
Yeah, just as much as I would respect them.
Right,
like we're all just athletes on the same level.
Yeah.
All just trying to do our thing and get better.
Yeah. That's fucking dope. I'd love to visit your gym at some point.
You're always welcome.
Really, really
and
nice.
Just to clarify, because like I was originally the one posting all the photos about the gym and stuff like that. This is Eric Bodhorn's gym, a good friend of mine.
Oh, right. Okay.
I just trained there.
Yeah.
He's just a very shy dude. Extremely smart, but just shy in front of a camera and doesn't post a whole lot. So I was just trying to kind of put out the word a little bit. And I get people saying all the time, like, your gym, like, it's not my gym.
Yeah, well, Eric has done a fantastic job. Like, it just looks like a nice place. And, like, whenever I see it in your vlogs, I'm like, wow, that's an aesthetic gym. Like everything just looks nice, clean, but also like, I don't know, the word would be like filthy enough to like get down. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got to brag a little bit because we're getting some new equipment.
Oof.
We're getting a cambered Swiss bar from Elite FTS. We're getting some chains. Um, and then upstairs, we're getting a bar and a table put in so you can come do some work before and after training.
Oof. What, really? Like, you can sit there on your laptop or something?
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Wow. Watch me move to Fort Collins. That's fucking dope.
Right.
Like, I find most gyms have that, but it's like, or they'll have something similar, but they'll have some couches or, but it's like, no one sits there. And I find it's, like, my old gym, nice place, but, like, if you, the only people that would sit on the couches would be, like, the kid waiting for their mum to finish the workout. And it's hard to sort of facilitate that. You can actually just chill out here. And I feel like, if you make that clear, that'd be really, really cool. Because, like, that's something I would appreciate at so many of my gyms. Like, my gym, like, AUT gym, it's like, it's at my university, so I can just go chill at the library. So, it's a bit different. But then my other gym, it's like, there are couches, but it's like, you're not really meant to sit there. Like, you're kind of taking up space for people trying to sign up for the gym or sit there, wait for the PT or something. So it's a bit sort of, I would say, a bit different. And one thing I'd like to sort of touch on is something that I found that you were doing that was quite interesting. And this sort of goes along the lines of the sort of, I guess, cognitive bias and all that. Is sort of how you used, I don't know if this is your idea or someone else's idea, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Sort of how you use plastic bags to cover the weights to sort of influence exercise selection, attempt selection.
Sure. Unfortunately, this turned into a big internet meme, but the idea itself came from Hugh Gilmore, who is a fantastic sports psychologist researcher in the UK. He works with the British weightlifting team, among individual athletes and other teams, and putting out his own research as well. Just a fantastic guy if you ever get around to chatting with him. But especially in the context of weightlifting, he would cover the loads as a way of preventing the athletes from, attaching a specific significance to what's on the barbell and lifting differently as a result. Basically getting around fear and using this intervention as a way to do that. So he stressed, do this with the athlete's permission, but a possible technique. And when I heard him present about that at the European Powerlifting Conference 2017 or 2018 maybe, I immediately thought, I wonder what this would be like in powerlifting, because I have definitely looked at the weight on the barbell and changed the way that I lifted as a result. Just gotten a little scared when it came to a 600-pound squat or, certain weights on for deadlift and bench press. Just, okay, I need to do something different for this weight, when that's really not the case. It's just about effort and not really about changing your technique. So my girlfriend Natalie just kind of helped me try it out, and it did make a difference. So I think just like the weightlifters, I had a ballpark of what's on the barbell. It's not like it could be anywhere from 10 pounds to 700 pounds. Like I had a ballpark because we both were on the same page. Like loads are progressing. I'm getting heavier. At the same time. So speaking of how it actually went down, I would turn around and face the opposite direction. They would load the bar. So uncover, load the bar with the new one, cover the weights up, and then I would turn around and go squat it. So every time I looked at the barbell, it was just bags.
Right.
And it did make a little bit of a difference. I would use this again in specific cases where athletes had some type of fixation with a specific number on the barbell and needed to get over that.
Wow, it's what's interesting about that is I think, like again, myself, right? Like I'm a incredibly pitiful powerlifter, right? I wouldn't even call myself a powerlifter. But what I find is interesting is every time I'm sort of breaking through a 10 kg plateau, that's when I shit myself, and I attach so much significance to breaking that. And it's like I just end up benching way worse. And like my technique is getting better, I'd say, at quite a fast rate because of how shit it was. And I don't know, I think something like that for myself could be very useful. And yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
What is the story with it becoming an internet meme? That sounds quite unfortunate because I know a lot of.
I'm fortunate that you missed the wave with that, but just people covering up bicep curls, like just putting a bag around their hand doing bicep curls, or people blindfolding themselves instead of the weights, and just all kinds of things like that.
Right.
It's really funny for a while. Like the core idea is great, but
Yeah, but they're not taking the piss out of the actual concept, though. They do get
Right.
Right. Okay, that's funny then. Right, love it. Yeah, I think I've recently started following a few powerlifting meme pages. And I think it's quite, they've got their unique sense of humor that I think bodybuilders can't get as specific with. Well, we can.
Yeah,
but...
it's hit and miss. There's certainly some good ones there.
Yeah, shout out. Do you have any particular meme pages you really like?
Not really. I just...
Yeah, one thing I would like to touch on before we finish is you seem to be a very sort of articulate thinking individual. I might have even asked you this last time. But is there any specific... I'm pretty sure I asked you this last time. Is there any specific books or resources that you really like that you would recommend, or anything you've read recently that really sort of hit home? Or
yeah, so I did give you a few things last time. I'm going to change it up and give you some maybe digital things this time. There's a YouTube channel called School of Life that puts out these little 5 to 10 minute videos about a specific topic. And speaking of cutting to the core, these are things like, what's it like to be alone? What is the nature of depression? What does reaching out for help look like? What does an ideal life look like? Biographies of various philosophers and authors, and it's just a ton of free content to get you thinking about your place in the world and what you might want out of things. And if anything matters, I think that's what matters. Powerlifting or bodybuilding or anything like that is good only because it fulfills something in us that gives us a deeper sense of purpose or connection with other people or ourselves. So definitely suggest that. And what else? I'm just about to read this book that I listened to a podcast about, and I loved it. I have not felt that anyone had quite the same view about free will that this guy did. It's called The Book of Why, The New Science of Cause and Effect by Judea Pearl. So much in the style of Daniel Kahneman's book on thinking fast and slow. But he talks about the nature of cause and effect in the universe, which ties into conversations on consciousness, on free will and choice, artificial intelligence, morality, punishment. So if you don't have free will, can you really punish someone for committing a crime that they didn't have any choice but committing, for instance? And if we want to teach artificial intelligence an ethical system at all, they need to know that one thing causes another and not the other way around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, super interesting book.
I don't know. I find free will is such an interesting one because it's so... I've had someone who understood it quite well explain it to me once, and I'm still struggling to grasp the concept of it, or the lack thereof, I guess. But yeah, it's an intriguing one. I think those sound like lovely recommendations. I quite liked when you talked about it was outlining it in a much better way than sort of the normal sort of, the motivational speakers be like, everything's due to what you do, blah, blah, blah. Like you outlined it in the way of, I think it was in your recent vlog around, or it might have been in a really old one. I was watching a few. It was sort of like, what causes, do you sort of think the way of what you do causes this, or the life sort of influences you the other way around, or I guess that's a terrible way of saying it, but
so that's about locus of control. This is kind of our explanatory style for how we explain events to ourselves. And some people can have a more internal explanatory style, so feeling that you of, various events in your life that you have control, that you decide what your actions are and what the consequences of those actions are. And other people have an external locus of control where they just kind of feel like the victim of circumstance of things going on around them. It's the patriarchy, it's the economy, it's it's my recovery, or I can't sleep because of my job, and just the difference between these two styles can lead someone to either feel like they have control over changing events in their life, or feel like they don't, and they're just kind of a passive thing floating in the storm of the world.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating concept the way you outline it, because it's much better than the fuck it, like everything you do is because of you, bro. Like where you are is what you do, bro. It's like, fuck, man, that shit. I don't know. I get it. It's true, but it's like, come on, that's not how you portray it. I think your way is it's a much more intelligent way to portray that kind of stuff. But so, should we finish off here? Where can people find you? Where can people find your vlog? Where can people find your podcast, your coaching, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we've got a few podcast episodes coming out. One about pain science coming up on the horizon. The podcast is just The Strength Athlete. Basically, everything's The Strength Athlete. The YouTube channel is The Strength Athlete. Our website is The Strength Athlete. And my Instagram is the odd one out. It's Bryce_TSA.
Boom. Cool. Any other... I'll cut it there if not, but is there any other products or anything you want to pimp?
Oh, yeah, actually. We have... So I'm really proud about this. We have a free weekly email series called the Athlete's Performance Toolkit. It's no strings attached. You just get one email every week on the same day you signed up, in sequence, in kind of like a design sequence to start simple and work our way toward more complex topics. Each email is a little bit of information about a topic, whether it's sport anxiety or coping with bad training sessions, or how much effort to put in. And there's more applied stuff on body weight manipulation, technique, on down the line of everything to make an athlete better, specifically a powerlifter, but there's a lot that transfer across sports. And that's just free content. Oh, and at the end of each one of those emails, there's a list of a few action steps. So yeah, there's all this information, and I think a lot of people just stop there, but here's exactly what to do with it over this week. Try this out, think about this, write about this. So that's free for everyone. And that's just at thestrengthathlete.com/APT.
Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you give us a review or you really enjoyed the episode. Let me know any feedback. I'm always open to any criticism, anything like that. Reach out to me on Instagram at James_Walsham. Or if you'd like to follow my business account, follow at the Hypertrophy Hub. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you would like to help the show, there's a list of ways to do so in the show notes, but if you're wondering how, the best thing to do is just give us a review on iTunes, or just let me know how the show can be improved. Thank you very much.